What up, people? It's Decal, and I'm the chairman of GNS-ETV. I just want to share a little bit of the reason why I created GNSETV.com. I wanted to create a platform where I had to control, a place where an artist can get a fair shot without having to feel as if their quality wasn't good enough or because they didn't have a platform to show their craft. If you got something you want the people to see, or if you want to check it out yourself, support small business, GNSETV.com. It's a free subscription. It costs you nothing but a couple seconds to create a profile. And you get to check out the VOD, videos on demand, or see what playlist I have streaming. GNSETV.com by GNS Collection.
So, let's start with the E.I.T.H.R.
You're listening to the E.I.T.H.R podcast with Decal.
What up, ladies and gentlemen? It's your boy Decal. The E.I.T.H.R podcast, episode number 113. Welcome. Coming to you live from the GNS HQ here in Northern California. It's kind of a late episode, but I wanted to make sure I got with my peoples. If you guys are new to the podcast, welcome. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you're returning, welcome back. The E.I.T.H.R podcast stands for the elephant in the room, where we talk about issues, concerns, and topics and things that might be difficult for you to have discussions with your peers because they might be short-sighted or one-sided. So think of this as a safe haven where everything is open and we do our best to play devil's advocate. So even if you don't necessarily agree with what we say, what we talk about, at least you'll be more informed with the position. Social media, you can follow on Instagram or Twitter, which is the E.I.T.H.R, TheEITHR. Also, you can hit us up via text message, 916-282-9372. You can call, you can text with any topics or whatever you would like for me to discuss. And if you want, I can give you a shout out over the podcast. GNSETV.com is our television station. If you can go ahead and just get a free subscription, that'd be great. So what we do here is we like to give shout outs to people. And I like to start off the podcast with an inspirational, motivational. This is the 113th episode. So there's a lot of positivity coming from this podcast, if I do say so myself. So I want to give a shout out to the, and I'm using air quotes, actors for the animated series that GNS Entertainment is creating, and it's called, I'm going to reserve the name. For those of you who know, you know. And I was talking to a few people today about the idea, and there's a lot of people who are interested. So I'm just going to leave that out there to linger for you guys in suspense and to be curious about what it is. But it's hopefully, if everything goes well, within the next 60 days or less, it will be out on GNSETV.com. Hopefully within the next 3 weeks, we'll be able to give you some type of teasers or a clip to kind of preview what it is, and we'll kind of go from there. So I want to go ahead and give a shout out to everyone who's involved with that. Thank you very much for seeing the vision and wanting to get creative and have a little fun. Now, for inspirational, motivational, you can follow this on the social media. Like I said, you can see it there. But there's a post that I put on our social media page, and it reads something like this: people only throw shade on what's shining. And I think that's a very powerful post because everybody wants to see you do well. They just don't necessarily want to see you do better than them. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there who are like that. And instead of getting their shit together to get on track, they rather for you to not have yours together. I also liken it to where people may see their shortcomings in their own efforts or lack thereof when you are on the ball, right? So you might be outgoing, driven, and ambitious. However, they may possibly not be. And the lazy man's favorite day of the week is tomorrow. So the fact that they see you getting it when they don't want to get anything, it kind of is a reminder to them, you slacking, they're moving. You slipping, they're grinding. And so therefore, if they can stop your progress or discourage you, it makes them feel better about not having any ambition or any drive to achieve their goal. But, you know, it happens all the time. So no matter how cloudy, no matter how foggy, how dark it get, the day is always darkest before the dawn. So the sun always going to burn through, no matter what happens. So don't let a candle outshine your sun. All those wonderful analogies that I'm giving you guys here. But the point is, people will do whatever they can if your shine is too bright for their eyes. So hand them a pair of sunglasses and tell them to get a tan while they're at it, because you're about to heat shit up. That's how I see it. So the E.I.T.H.R podcast here with Decal. We got a couple of things we're going to talk about on the other side of the shout out from the sponsor. It's also What's Your Mile Friday. Every Friday, majority Fridays, I do a thing for the sponsor, What's Your Mile, which is what is something that you're doing that's difficult or you haven't had a chance to do on a regular basis that you're going to make it look easy. So we're going to get into that. And shout out to Florida. So the E.I.T.H.R podcast Decal will be back in about 40 seconds.
Most t-shirts are simply cool to look at and or look in. Well, so are ours. But ours also aim to send a message. They aim to put a name on obstacles that once stood in your way and aren't there anymore. Struggles that you turned into successes and crushed. You made it look easy. Shop at mile.today. Mile.today. www.mile.today. A GNS collection.
This is Michaela Rivera from Cottage Grove, Oregon, and you're listening to the E.I.T.H.R podcast with my friend Decal.
So it's your boy Decal back with the podcast. So yesterday's episode on the podcast, I did my top 5 Denzel Washington movies, top 5 of all time. And number 5 was Remember the Titans. Number 4 was The Bone Collector. Number 3 was Fallen. 2 Training Day. 1 Crimson Tide. Earlier today, I was checking out some movies on my phone, and I totally forgot about this film. And so it's one of those things. Look, dude has so many wonderful movies that these 2, hands down, is changing my top 5 plus my 2 reserves. So what we're going to do is, number 5 was Remember the Titans. That's getting removed off of the list, unfortunately. Even though it's a great movie, I said everything I said about it, which is still true about that movie. I've got to get this off my chest. Number 5 is getting replaced with Man on Fire. The cinematography for that movie was just fucking sick. If you haven't seen that film with Denzel, Dakota Fanning, Chris Walken, you know, that movie is just, it's the it, man. So, Man on Fire, that movie, yo, yeah. Sorry, like I said, I love Remember the Titans. Left Side, Strong Side, all that fun stuff. But yeah, it's that. And then the rest of it is going to stay the same. Even though I can probably switch out Bone Collector and Man on Fire. But for my reserve was American Gangster and Malcolm X. Okay. Some people are probably going to get heated after this one, but I really like the movie Unstoppable with him and Chris Pine. You know, a few other people was in that film. Unstoppable, about the train, 777. I don't want to give too much about it. Whenever that film comes on, no matter what, hands down, I watch it. So when I saw it was on today streaming, I was like, yo, how did I forget about this one? Like I said, my man has movies from the 80s. And if I was doing a top 10, it would be a little bit easier. But cramming all these into 5, it's you know, it is what it is. But those are my top 5. So it's going to be Man on Fire, Bone Collector, Fallen, Training Day, and then Crimson Tide. I just had to get that off my chest. I just it was bothering me earlier today. Once I realized what films I left off, I kind of got mad at myself. I was like, damn, I wish I can go ahead and do a mulligan, but it is what it is. So, you know, that's what that is. So also on our social media, we did I put a post. I saw this meme and I thought it was pretty funny. I'm more of a Marvel guy. DC's cool. DC, you know, it got some thugs out there. I feel Marvel is just better. Now, when I talk about the comics, right, versus the MCU, because the MCU and the comics don't necessarily mimic one another. But you know, the MCU kind of takes a bunch of the comics and meshes them together. So even though the storylines may not be accurate, you kind of get the gist of it. I feel DC is what Marvel was when Blade pulled Marvel out of the dirt and gave it life. That's kind of where DC's at. It's if you think of it like rock bands, DC is Metallica, and you can say Marvel is more like your Motley Crue or your Guns N' Roses, right? Just because it's live, vibrant, and pretty, and all kinds of cool shit. But other than that, this poster put about Batman. Batman is one of those characters I cannot fucking stand. Dude is overrated. If you really think about it, Batman is just some regular rich dude who gets what he wants. His superpower is money, right? If you really think about how conniving this motherfucker is, he has studied and figured out all the weaknesses of everyone in the Justice League. Superman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Flash, Green Lantern, Hawkman, all of them, right? And he has everything you could possibly think of his utility belt. I want you to think of a police officer's utility belt. It's not the same as a utility belt, but you kind of get the gist of it. Take a cop's belt, and that motherfucker has every possible imaginable weapon or item to life save on the planet in his belt. That's Batman. It's like, dude got everything you possibly could think of. I'm like, bruh, how you have a raft in your utility belt if you fall off a cliff into an aggressive river? You got a life raft and floaties in your belt. Like, dude is he's just stupid. He's useless. Batman ain't shit. I'll tell his dad to his face. But there's a meme that I posted where it has Michael Keaton, Christian Bale, and Ben Affleck. The 3 of the 4 most recent depicted Batmans in film, right? And so the question was, and if they were to have an all-out brawl, which one will be the one standing? Michael Keaton, Christian Bale, or Ben Affleck? And there's on the social media. Like I said, you can go to Instagram, you can go to Twitter, and post your comment, which one you think. But from what I've seen, it's a majority of a landslide. Everyone agrees Christian Bale would probably get worked. He'll get murked at first. Like, he would be the first one to fall. And I kind of agree with that. Just because I don't know. I think in my mind, if they were to fight, he would be the one that would overthink himself, get a little too overzealous, and miss a couple opportunities to end it and get caught slipping a few times. Ben Affleck, in my opinion, would be the second hardest, because he's the Batman who, listen, man, I done took out the Joker, I done took out Bane, we done dealt with the Penguin, I done answered the Riddler, I done seen some shit, right? Catwoman, I done seen some shit, right? Whipped Superman's ass, kinda. Took out Doomsday somewhat. So he's had some things going on for himself. So he would be a really tough match for anybody. Would be him more than Christian Bale. And again, Bale was a bad dude, especially in The Dark Knight, where you had the late Heath Ledger playing the Joker. That Batman was a pretty badass. But once you figure him out, then he's like that one level in a video game that you just beat. Like, it's no challenge anymore, right? That's my opinion. Now, Keaton, he's the OG. Keaton is the old dude on the blacktop at the Rucker or at Mosswood Park, right? With the white socks that come up to the calves, with the dual red stripes or the green stripes, with the low top Chuck Taylor shoes, the Love Me Sexy basketball shorts, with the mesh tank top, the afro, with the headband, right? With the gold chain, the taco meat on and right with the light toned legs, as he doesn't wear shorts often, and mildly ashy kneecaps. That's Michael Keaton, right? And you get him on the blacktop, and it's like, you can't move this old bastard. Like, he's not as swift as the young boys, but he can break a few ankles, sprain some knees with some moves he got. And you're like, he's doing this in low top Chucks. Like, how do you play basketball in low top Chuck Taylors? That's how they did it back in the 70s, right? That's how you did it back in the 80s, right? You with the gold chain, the wristband, the headband, the mesh tank, all that, right? So I think Keaton, even though he may not have the new gadgets, bells, whistles, and toys the other two Batmen will probably have in their utility belt, he's that old school car where it's the carburetor. It's not fuel injected, but it's that 1957 Chevy. It's that heavy duty big body made out of iron, right? It ain't gonna get up nowhere. It ain't got no. It's not gonna get you off the line. But in the long run, when that motherfucker picks up speed, you really are gonna have a hard time moving it off the road. So I think if in those three Batmen were to fight, Michael Keaton definitely will be the one who comes out on top. That's what I believe. That's what I think. That's what I feel, and that's how I see it. Keaton will be the one that be waving the checker flag with the trophy at the end, you know, shaking babies and kissing hands and all that fun stuff. That's what I think. What say you, though? Which Batman? Again, this is just for sharks and giggles. This is for fun. This, you know, just it was an interesting post, and I was like, damn, this is actually a good one. Because even though I don't like Batman, I do respect the dude. I mean, he's literally a human. No powers. Just a schizophrenic billionaire with anxiety issues, depression, and abandonment from watching his parents get murdered. Like that. If you notice, a lot of the superheroes all have something in common. Like they witness. It's dark, bro. It gets dark. But speaking of Dark Knight, which one would you say will probably win in a battle? I think it'll be interesting to watch if that ever was to do like a old school celebrity death match. I think that'd be fun to watch. And like I said, I think Keaton will be the one who comes out on top. Simple as that. Speaking of movies, so as I'm writing out some screenplays and like a vision board or whatever for this movie idea that I got through GNS Entertainment, I'm also watching the John Wick films. And I was watching John Wick 3, and then I went to John Wick 2. And yesterday, I sent this tweet to the musician Common. I was like, look, hear me out. I know I'm late, but I think this will work. In John Wick 2, Common is, if you will, he's like the bodyguard of what's her name? Gianna D'Antonio, right? And if you haven't seen John Wick the second, watch it, because it's a really good film. And that's kind of when the world also on a big scale got introduced to Ruby Rose. And so Cassian is the character played by Common. And it was a scene where he and John Wick, obviously played by Keanu Reeves, get into a battle on a train. And if you've seen the movie, you know how that scene ended. If you haven't, you have to see the movie. But I was like, listen, with how the scene ended, you know, you recover, you know, you get help, and, you know, you get some medical attention or whatnot. And now your mission is to avenge what John did to your peoples in the second film, right? And you knock off any and everybody that was associated to him that you run into. And in each location, you know, you go into, you kind of get this feeling like John was just here or John is close by. It's kind of like a gut instinct, right? Like your spider sense kind of just goes off. And the first film would be called Avenger the Ward, right? Because you're avenging the death of your ward. So you have that one. And it leads with some clues to meet up at the Continental in New York City, where you then end there and you begin the second one, which I said, okay, we can probably, you know, title the second one, It Was a Good Day. Because if you saw the second and you heard the conversation between the two of them, meaning John Wick and Cassian, he kind of makes a question. He asked the question, you know, good day? He was like, I'm afraid so, says John Wick, right? So that's the subtitle to the second one. It was a good day because you were able to knock off people. Cassian was able to knock off people that was close to Wick. You know, blood is blood, I guess, in that world. Eye for an eye. Then, as the second one ends, it leads into the third trilogy, because, you know, John Wick has like there's 4 movies, but rumor has it that they're going to be doing a possible 5th John Wick as well. So my idea was like, okay, casting will have a trilogy. So the 3rd one would be Professional Courtesy. And again, if you saw the 2nd one, you kind of understand where that reference comes from. So everything is veering from the 2nd John Wick film, which is where we are introduced to Cassian. And all this, in my theory, is kind of like running parallel to the John Wick films. So you watch the John Wick film and then you watch the Cassian movie as my idea. All that is happening at the same time John Wick is doing his thing. So they meet up in a place, and in this theory, it can be between John Wick 3 and John Wick 4, or it can be somewhere between Wick 4 and Wick 5. And the movie ends with the 2 of them meeting each other and about to have a standoff, and then it rolls credits. So we don't see the fight. We just know that they're about to get into another one. So I tweeted that idea to Common. I don't expect to hear anything back from him. And I gave some little art of to where, Avengers of War could probably, use as a promotional poster or whatever. But it was just an idea. It was just an idea. The John Wick movies are pretty dope if you've seen them. And another competition or another battle, I offer people, like, I wonder who would win this fight between John Wick and Jason Bourne. That would be a good matchup, right? Because you got one person who's probably skilled hand to hand, and you have another person who's probably skilled when it comes to armed combat. So that'll be fun. Different mashups or whatnot. But I think that Cassian idea will probably be dope, because Common, in my opinion, is a really good actor. I know a lot of us recognize him from music, probably even from the 3rd Barbershop film. I'll probably say the one Common movie that I really appreciated him in was in Smoking Aces, but that was a minute ago. And that movie, that's probably one of my favorite Jeremy Piven, Chris Pine movies. And that movie was straight up starstruck. Like, it was just star-studded everywhere with Smoking Aces. The 2nd one was like Jay-Z said, one was the other was Smoking Aces. There's a one hot movie every 10-year average, and that's so lame. Anyway, if you guys understand that reference I just saying, then you're a cool kid. If you don't worry about it. It goes over your head. So that was a Cassian idea that I got. And then the Batman idea we talked about, I think Michael Keaton will whip his ass. But there's an issue that I feel that we need to address, so let's get right to it. Okay, so I haven't used that sound in a long time, and what that was, whenever we're dealing with the elephant in the room of a certain topic, I usually would ring that tone, but it's been a few episodes since I've done it, so that's bad on me. But I want to talk about this for the past couple of days, the state of Florida. Right, the state of Florida, truckers apparently have boycotted, or truckers are boycotting the state. Right, they're calling for people to not drive through, to not go to not do anything, regardless of the state of Florida, because of the new, well, I shouldn't say because of the new, but because of the immigration laws that Governor DeSantis is putting in place that's going to be effective as of July 1st. Bill 1718, 1718. What that does is businesses with 25 or more employees are required to use E.I.T.H.R, which is a federally based or a federally controlled system that determines if employers are legal or illegal or not. Because they're trying to crack down on, obviously, illegal immigrant issues that's happening here. And just a couple of days ago, there was the situation where DeSantis had some immigrants from Texas flown to California. And his thing was, I don't have any, he basically admitted it. It was just like, I don't have any sympathy for sanctuary states. And so it was kind of like, damn, bro, like that? Like, okay, cool. And so you see, people like on the buses and they're happy and they're doing this, that, and the third. And no one really knew what the point was for him to do it. He later on admitted, like, yeah, I did that. Like, yeah, that's, but like, what are you going to do about it? And a couple of other people, what was it? I want to say it was in Houston. I think that was the city where, and even Governor Newsom for California, it was considering doing kidnapping charges against DeSantis and things of that nature. And listen, I personally, man, I understand what people are talking about with the immigration issue. I sincerely do. And it is a problem. It is annoying when you have, quote unquote, illegal aliens, skedaddling over here to the United States of America and, doing foul shit. Like, I 100% get it. Here's the problem, though. You're focused on one group and ignoring another, because there are issues that needs to be done with the people within this country before you try to regulate who can't. This country is based on illegal immigration. Let's start there. Let's start there. And no one wants to talk about that. Now, when you get people who do stupid shit and commit crimes, yes, I get it. And you want to eliminate that. I understand. But here's the issue. Majority of the people refuse to understand is, like, in California, all the way to Arizona, up to the Oregon border, this at one point was Mexico. So I kind of look at people when they tell, Mexican people go back to where you come from. It's like, bro, they're here already. Like, you're the one who's out of pocket. Now, with a sanctuary state, and apparently there's 11 of them in the U.S. California's one, Oregon, Washington, Vermont, New York, Connecticut, Illinois, and I can't remember the other ones. I have them someplace. And a few of them been sanctioned states since the 80s. And I think the problem with this whole thing is you have a good thing and then bad people take advantage of it. And it's one of those things where the good has to suffer for the bad. That's what it boils down to, in my opinion. Because this is one article I read. Said 21% of the population in the state of Florida are undocumented, right? And it seems like you're targeting a specific group. Again, I understand. But I also think it's a smokescreen. I sincerely think it's a smokescreen. Because it seems like it's one of these issues where you want people to kind of focus and pay attention here while on the back end and no one's looking, you can do things of this nature. So you want people to be able to be verified. You want them to be documented. You want them to be legal citizens. So that way they can get jobs like everybody else. And if you want to be here, you got to follow our rules, so on and so forth. Again, I'm with it. 100%. I support it. I get it. I'm all for it. But I'm also not an idiot to understand that some people are probably doing this so they can maneuver illegal immigrants for significantly low pay. Here's kind of what I mean. I'll use this as an example. The 13th Amendment, right? If you are by definition, criminal, somebody with a criminal record, with a felony charge, probation, parole, whatever, what have you, it's very difficult for you to get a job. Most employers, generally speaking, don't want to hire any convicts, air quotes. So most of the jobs that most people with records can get typically are labor jobs, construction, things of that nature. So that's all they can do. Now, if you take somebody who is illegally documented, you can kind of pay them whatever you choose to under the table with the understanding you either take what I give you or I'm going to report you. Right? So you kind of scare them into being able to do a whole hell of a lot more and pay them a whole hell of a lot less. That's the trade-off. While at the same time, in my opinion, you're yelling, screaming, ranting, and raving about how you're getting rid of all of them. So it's almost like I'm talking bad about somebody while at the same time degrading them. And on the flip side, still giving you employment and making you do like the literal shit job that nobody wants. But it's in America. You're here. It's another, in my opinion, and some people may agree, they may not agree, but I see it as another form, like an extension of slavery, where you can't go anywhere because you ain't got papers, bro. So you want to be here? You don't want to go back? Okay. Well, the whole world hates you on the surface. Nobody likes you and no one's going to hire you. So here's what we're going to do. You're going to take this job and I'm going to pay you $5 an hour and you're going to work 13 hours and you're going to get a 20-minute lunch and I'm going to take 40% of your pay as a gratuity. And the rest, you keep. And you get paid every Friday. Now, that's a horrible setup. But if I don't have papers and I'm not trying to go back to where I'm escaping or where I'm leaving, and it's something that's going to at least give my family something, okay, cool. I'm you don't know any better. You're going to take that deal. You're going to take that deal. And trust me, I get there's people right now who will probably listen to this podcast thinking that doesn't make any sense. That's stupid. That's not what's happening. To protect the sheep, you have to think like a wolf, and it takes a wolf to catch a wolf. So if you look at it from the angle of how a wolf may possibly play it, you'll see it that there's a possibility that this is something that's happening. Now, with sanctuary states like California, again, you can murder somebody, go to a sanctuary state or sanctuary city, and not be arrested or detained because of. And again, I think the purpose of these sanctuary areas were to eliminate excessive abuse or use of force against human beings for doing non-violent or non-lethal crimes. But the fact that they were illegal, had no documentation, no paperwork, agencies were going a little too hard in the paint on them. in these states said, yo, that ain't it. So, in my opinion, that's what I think some of these states did. Now, again, I feel politicians will do one thing on the surface. They'll behave one way above the table and act the 180 under the table. So above the table, we see what we see. Below the table, I'm sure there's no traces of, there's no, for the most part, there's no paper trail to find shit, right? But they don't have any street smarts for the most part. So there's probably going to be something that connects them. Someone says something, but right now everything's on a hush and everyone's probably afraid to talk because of what may come out. But I think that this whole deal is to strum up a division because people are afraid that they're being replaced, outnumbered, or extinct, right? Where, and again, here's kind of what I mean by that, in my opinion. Everything's going to artificial intelligence. A lot of services are becoming automated. So you're taking jobs from America and you're taking them abroad overseas because you can pay someone 55 cents a day to do 10 hours worth of call center work. Obviously, I'm being facetious with that, right? So any job that's based here in America, well, they're losing money. And they're losing people because they don't have the payroll. They don't have the income to pay these people. Because let's face it, the top executives, they're not taking a pay cut. And if I have to get a computer-generated service to do your job, I'm going to get a computer-generated service to do your job because I ain't got to pay that service. I got to pay someone to probably maintain it and program it, which is cool. I pay them one time. The service works. They kind of maintain it on a small monthly residual, but I don't have to worry about payroll. So therefore, you can be replaced. Again, this is just my opinion. You guys are more than welcome to give what you think about the subject. And a lot of people in these jobs are hurting because it's labor, right? It's more hands-on for them, if you will, brick and mortar type of services, right? So you have these illegal immigrants that you can pay less money to that can do similar work. If you've seen the movie Shawshank Redemption, it's kind of like that, where they were working on the railroad and the guy comes to see the warden and he was like, look, man, this slave labor you got, you could outbid any contractor in town, right? Because these criminals ain't got no other options to do. So in that analogy with the movie of Shawshank Redemption, you could take people who are documented, who are good, handymen, house cleaning, construction, detailing, whatever fill in the blank of opportunity, fill in the blank. So you get people who are good at that. Why am I going to pay you $30,000 to do a job when I could pay them $5,000 and they're cool with that? And they'll split that $5,000 happily because they get to stay here and they take that money to their family. So those Americans are losing business and they're struggling and they're stressing, which makes sense to stress over something like that. So you kind of feeling that political pressure. So you want that clientele to vote for you. So you kind of shut the people who they're losing to. You eliminate them. In my opinion, all this shit's political. They're not doing it for the greater people. They're doing that to get your vote, in my opinion, right? So we're just pawns to the politicians. You ship them from Texas to California to kind of thumb one at Gavin Newsom. Okay, cool. So you petty. So now he's going to play petty and say, well, I should have you arrested for kidnapping and all this other fun shit. And he was like, neener, neener, pumpkin eater. Okay. Well, I have no sympathy for sanctuary states. Is that, and you're riling up your base of people because it looks as if they're being supportive. What they don't understand is the people who, again, you pay bare minimum to do like the grueling, ugly work. There's nobody there to do that work now. Ralphie May, one of the comedians, the late Ralphie May, comedian, kind of talked about it, where you take those undocumented people who work in the fields in Fresno in a California summer. You eliminate them. There's nobody doing that job, right? Okay. Well, El Dorado Hills, Folsom, Cameron Park, St. Helena, West Hollywood. None of your kids are going to go out those fields and do it. So that salad that cost $12, well, you just remove the people who were doing all the work to pick all that items for your now it's going to cost you $95 because there's nobody doing the job. So now price is going to skyrocket. So it's a never-ending problem because they don't want to face the solution, which is the politicians are the problem. They're focusing on all the wrong people. Now, again, I said earlier, I do agree with keeping those who don't belong here out of here. And if they want to do what they got to do to become citizen, okay, cool. But you also have to focus on some of the criminals and the rapists and the drug dealers that are already here in this country. And I think that's one of the biggest issues that we have collectively as a society is we're so focused on helping and dealing and worried about outsiders that they're not even really tripping on what's going on within their own borders, right? Because you can't blame them for what's happening with us already. Now, again, with this bill 1718, Senate Bill 1718, it does not include people becoming independent contractors. Again, it's for employees. Here's your loophole. So if I'm undocumented, and I'm sure there's stipulations and fine print, of course, but if I'm undocumented and I can't get me a job, okay, I'll become an independent contractor and quote unquote work for myself, right? Or you can go to a sanctuary state and get documentation. Or like I said, if you're an independent contractor, you good, right? Depending on, stances are. So you now become self-employed, which in my opinion, if that's the case, you can now create a whole bigger issue because the employer is now having documented people would have payroll, so on and so forth. This undocumented person, they have family members that are willing to start and have their own family business. See, in America, collectively, we're not too keen on generational wealth. We're more paycheck to paycheck. I got to worry about how I'm going to eat next week. And that's how it's been for a while. I get it. But a lot of people who migrate to this country well before I was even born, they had a vision, right? And they did whatever they had to do so that way their family and their lineage could be proud of what they established. So a lot of these folks, they're not tripping on 4 or 5 people living in a 1-bedroom studio or a studio, because all that money is going to go to them creating their own business. So therefore they have a loophole with the system. So again, truck drivers are basically wanted to boycott the state of Florida because they feel it's foul. And I get it, because a lot of these undocumented workers, they are the people who's in the fields doing the labor work, right? They're the ones that's out there who is in the fields of Florida or Fresno. I'm sure Florida has some too, like in the swampy areas doing whatever for the rice. And look, man, there's plenty of people who do that backbreaking work, bro, who put their kids through college, right? And it's interesting how, in my opinion, in some cases, America will shun on those who are doing exactly what the founding fathers did, right? It's the whole do as I say, not what I did type of movement. And I think as time goes on, we're realizing how hypocritical this shit is. Second, to the point I'm making, we're sending so many financial aid to other countries and different places. It's like, why not deal with the problems here, bro? Like, it's wild. My A1 put a post where it says, I don't think they deserve much money. Well, I don't think they deserve more money. Is always a question from nobody but the rich about the poor, or something like that, where the ultra wealthy will look at the ultra poor and ask, well, why do they deserve this money? It was like, bruh, look at them. Like, what do you mean? How do they deserve the money? That's just, the sound of that shit just sounds stupid, right? So, bottom line is, Florida is, again, I've never been to the state. I do want to check out the state. I think it'll be a cool ass state to kind of just hang out in. I know some people out there, but from what I have read, they're going to be they're tripping over dollars for pennies. You're going to cause a bigger problem for a significantly short time solution. And I feel all this is just to stir up the base for votes so they can get in office. And a lot of us collectively aren't really bright enough to understand that part. Because like I said, and I don't want to keep making this shit long-winded, nobody is going to go out there and do all that labor work, bro. Like, think about it. How many people you know that you can pay significantly cheap money to do all that labor work around the house or around a construction site or landscaping, right? If it's an American business, they're going to want to get paid, which makes sense because they're paying American wages. They got taxes, they got payroll, they have all these things, depending on what state you're in, because some states are more business friendly than others. California is definitely not a business friendly state. But if you're here, you're going to want top dollar for that. And that's why I'm like, you're going to get some, whatever your political preference is, some person who is going to be anti-immigrant. But I can bet your ass there's somewhere right now at a Home Depot with a truck bed trying to get a few people so they can do a whole bunch of work for a couple $100s, right? They want to make sure they do at least $10,000 worth of business and pay those people $1,500 and watch them be happy for it. Like, it's wild, Joe. It really is. But this is the beauty about being open-minded. This is the beauty about playing devil's advocate, because even if it's something that I don't agree with, I still wanted to be informed about it. And I'm hoping that this podcast episode, helped you guys be a little bit more informed about the situation. And again, do your own reading. Do your own digging. I did. Right? And so, how do you guys feel about that, man? Do you think the boycotting for the truckers going to and going through Florida, you think that's going to help the situation? Do you think that's going to hurt the situation? Do you feel that the state of Florida needs to lighten up on their tight grasp of illegal immigration? Do you think, because like I said, sanctuary states, man, I mean, there's certain agencies you can't touch anybody, right? Or do you feel, like I said earlier, it's one of those situations where it was designed with good intention, but because of the bad few apples kind of ruined the barrel. They said one bad apple spoils a bunch. And I think that's pretty much what happened. I think that's what happened in a lot of situations, right? They take the 2 or 3 bad situations and say, this is what's happening and we can't allow it. And the other 20 or 30 people are like, wait, that's not us. We good over here. Like, we're not even trying to do that. And I think that's what the situation is. So what say you guys? What's your opinion? Like I said, you can reach us on the social media at the E.I.T.H.R, THEEITHR, on Instagram as well as Twitter. GNSETV.com, free subscription. Go ahead and subscribe to that. Appreciate that. So we got what's your mile, right? So mine is really simple, man. I'm going to be working on screenplays and vision boards for this animated series I got going. And so it's going to be interesting. It's going to be fun. And so it's kind of rekindle some new man juice, some enthusiasm. And sometimes when you start something or when you get something going, it can be very monotonous because you don't see the progress necessarily. You don't see the progress the way you think it should look like. But this right here, man, it's the people who I spoke to, especially those who were outside my circle, kind of just gave an example, like a breakdown of it. And a lot of people love the idea. My people's Gia, the OG out there at BioLife, she was like, she got goosebumps hearing me explain what this was. So I'm kind of excited to get that going. And I think in the next 60 days, like I said, man, it's going to be a cool little project. I'm not expecting for anything to be, major or this monstrosity of whatever, but I'm expecting for this to be, a lot of fun. And whenever I get discouraged, man, I just try to remember people who I admired as a kid or growing up, even as an adult. And everyone knows Percy Miller, aka Master P. And I appreciate hearing stories from him about how nobody really believed in him, right? He was just this dude from the country, and his sound was different. His look was different. Nobody really was feeling him. Nobody was really rocking with him. But a few Bay Area cats, EA Ski, and, a few others say, no, we got this. Don't trip. And he built an empire. And I mimic my whole GNS Inc. after what he did with his No Limit Records empire. So I say all that just to say, don't let anyone throw shade on your shine, man. Just don't. Just don't. One thing I want to talk about right quick before I end this podcast with the going back to the Florida issue. People fear what they don't understand. And I think when you're out of touch and out of reach, that's when you rely on certain media to educate you. But I can attest that one of the worst things you can do is listen to the voice within your own head. Because that the brain is meant to keep you alive. It's not meant to make you feel comfortable. So when you have these ideas or these thoughts about, I don't know, fill in the blank, shit that you see on television or see on social media. And I've said this plenty of times, man, reach out and talk to somebody who can relate. And one thing that I do myself is whenever I get advice or talk to someone, I make sure that that person damn well is credible. They're actually somebody that is vetted and makes sense. And I also keep in contact with people who typically don't see the same, or I don't see the same as them. That's how you stay informed. Because the truth is somewhere in the middle, right? And sometimes the truth is exactly what you don't want to hear. That's why you should hear it anyway. So the issue that's going on in Florida, if you are from Florida and you listen to this, man, think for yourself versus have these politicians think, because they're going to shovel you shit and call it sugar. And you're going to tell them how sweet it is. And they're just going to keep feeding it to you. Right? The late George Carlin once said, the worst thing that can happen to a U.S. government is they run into a fully functioning, self-thinking society. Because now they can't tell you bullshit. You see it. And I know the public, we only get bits and pieces of the information. They're not going to tell us everything. But when it comes down to it, man, this illegal thing, yeah, you want to get documented. I know it's a broken record. You want to get documented. But at the same time, I honestly feel they're doing shit so that way people, just like you do with someone who has a criminal background, they have nowhere to turn. They have nowhere to go. So whatever you give them, they'll have to accept it. Otherwise, they'll have to deal with the consequences that they're trying to avoid. And that's how I see it. And I think it's an unfortunate situation that's kind of where we're at. But it's a combination of everything, man. Like I said, artificial intelligence, inflation, the war that we had, COVID, politics. It's a plethora of all of it. It's all the above. But just go out and do your own research, man. Look into shit that you normally wouldn't pay attention to. Things that you normally wouldn't read. People you normally wouldn't talk to. Because I can almost guarantee you, the person that you dislike, you guys probably have more in common than the people you do like. Right? It's like any other relationship. Get past the bullshit and have a conversation with them. And like, man, what's your problem? What's your struggle? And you'll hear them out. Keep in mind that everybody's a victim, right? It's nobody's fault. It's always somebody else's fault, right? So kind of learn how to filter through that and hear the story. But if you get someone that is kind of on his or her shit and they call it the way it is and they admit their own shortcomings and they come with, good intention and encouraging and enlightening and non-bias, rock with them, man. Rock with them. I hope Florida gets it all together. I hope the rest of the country gets it together. It's your boy D-Cal, man, with the E.I.T.H.R podcast. Appreciate it. So again, my Make It Mile, the screenplays for this project, man, that's what I'm going to be doing. So I appreciate you guys, and I will talk to you guys next week. Stay blessed. Have a great weekend. And for my people out there too, man, yo, happy Pride, man. Happy Pride. We out.